Hello. Hello, everyone. I will just wait a few minutes, like a couple minutes, just to get more people join here. Can you hear me well, Paula, Shabaaka? Can you hear me? Can you hear me? Okay, perfect. Hello, Rafael. Let's just wait a couple minutes. I said hello. Can you hear me well? I mean, are you talking to me? No, sorry. I'm just trying to make sure if you guys can hear me. Can you hear me well? Give me a thumbs up. Because my internet service today was kind of like stopping all the time. So we have the people from Spectrum. It's Brian from Spectrum. He's gonna be our guest speaker next week. Thank you, Rafael. Okay, hi Brian. Baby Queer, they also, actually they're gonna be our guest speaker on this Saturday. They're gonna talk about being queer. So I'm sure it's gonna be amazing too. So let me start. Just remind you guys that our live, they happen like every Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday at 7 p.m. here in Florida and 8 p.m. in Brazil. And on Saturdays at 2 p.m. in Brazil and 1 p.m. here in Florida, okay? So you guys are very welcome to participate with us. We're gonna have some days will be in English, some days will be in Portuguese. So you're more than welcome to enjoy with us. All right. So let me see what else I have to say before we call Shabaaka, who is gonna be our guest speaker tonight. Tomorrow the live will be in Portuguese, and you're gonna talk about LGBT and anxiety. That is thing that is really important for everybody, even nowadays, if this whole thing that's happening outside. So if you guys speak Portuguese or want to understand Portuguese or speak a little bit of Portuñol, you're more than welcome to watch the live tomorrow at 7 p.m. in Florida and 8 p.m. in Brazil, okay? So let's start. Shabaaka, can you request to join here with us so we can start? Oh, perfect, Rafael. So you're more than welcome to watch with us tomorrow, okay? Hi, Victoria. Hi, Chivago. Hi, Renata. Let's just wait for Shabaaka. I think he's on already. He's online.
Hello. Is it working or am I frozen?
I I think we can hear you, but we cannot see you.
Okay, that is strange. Let me see. How about now?
No yet. Do you wanna try? Do you want me to remove you and then you request again?
Yes, please.
Okay.
Is better now?
I still can see you.
That is so
I
strange.
don't know what's happening.
Yeah, I
Can
still
you
see
guys
you.
see him? Can you guys see Shabaka? Because if they can see you, that's fine.
Because it looks to me as if I am frozen here.
Oh, so probably not. For me, it looks like it's loading your image, your camera.
I see. Yeah, that is weird. Um, hmm. Is anyone able to hear me?
What, excuse me?
I was wondering if people could hear me.
I
Perhaps I
think
should
we can
leave.
hear you very well. We just cannot see you.
Got you. Okay. So perhaps I'll take the app off and rejoin.
Okay.
Okay.
Sorry, guys. This technology. I'm gonna remove him.
All right. Is it working now?
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Now we can see you.
Gracias a Dios.
Perfect.
All right. Excellent. All right.
So, how
Sorry
are
about all
you?
of that.
No,
I'm
no
doing
problem.
well.
Knowledge.
I'm
What's
doing well. What about you?
I didn't hear you. What did you say?
I said I'm doing pretty well. What about yourself?
I'm doing pretty well, actually. I mean, trying to, right? With everything that's going on.
True.
So,
True.
again, thank you so much for being here with us.
Of course.
Work kind of together. I mean, kind of the same company.
Hmm.
On the LGBT group, Microsoft. The name is Gleam,
Hmm.
right? Think maybe we can
Yeah.
talk
Yeah.
about it later. It'd be nice.
Hmm.
Um, so, and I'm really happy when you said, yes, of course, I'm going to participate with this project with you. So thank you so much for being here.
Of course. Of course. Thanks for inviting me.
So, can you introduce yourself a little
All
bit
right.
for us?
All right, sure. So I'm Shabaka to a lot of other people. I am Sage, depending on who knew me when. Like everybody's got their nicknames. But yeah, so I work at Microsoft as a product advisor and lead distribution specialist, which basically means that all of my time is spent calling people and saying, "Hey, do you like what you have and how can we make it better?" So it's sort of like creating value for what you are responsible for giving, if that makes sense. And on the other hand, it's following up and saying, hey, do you like it? Do you want to stay with us? What can we do to make this better for you? So that's essentially my job.
Wow,
um,
that's awesome, actually.
that's-
Yeah, and
yeah.
you were born here, right, in USA, but he speak Portuguese, guys, like perfectly. He looks like a Brazilian. That's true.
Oh God, don't, please don't test that. He is very generous. You know, Brazilians are very nice. Dear God, please don't test it.
The next life will be Portuguese, right? Try,
Sure, un
try.
poco, só um pouco.
Okay. So again, guys, everyone that's joined to us right now, thank you so much. And Chewbacca, Just Love is all yours right now. So please search yourself.
Oh gosh. Okay. So, what to say? What to say? What to say? So, I guess, my topic today is about business and entrepreneurship because that's something very near and dear to my heart. Um, the reason for that is a reason that I don't know. I can never say why it is because it hasn't been true except for maybe the last 2 or 3 years. But if I were to look back into myself, I realized that I was always doing entrepreneurship, always doing business. Hold on 1 second. Let me just turn off my notifications. All right. And turn off because I will not be disturbed while I'm working with you guys. I should have done that earlier. Um, but yeah, so business is really, to me, just sort of like making money move and it's creating a flow of value. When it comes to us as individuals, it's sort of like the flow of value into and out of your pockets. So we know how that goes. When you're working for a company, you are getting money into your pocket, but you're putting out time and they're really getting the money. You're just kind of getting what you need to survive. When it comes to owning your own thing, you are creating value and you are pricing it and making it move. You're making sort of things happen. Like that river's going and you've got a windmill that's sort of turning and turning and turning, and that's just business. Of course, what you put back into that river is what you get out. There are lots of obstacles, all of these things, and basically, the way I like to think about it is how many streams you can touch divided by sort of like how far do you have to stretch yourself. And it's important for our communities as queer people because, and I'm just going to read off some statistics really quickly. If I'm not mistaken, there were 28 million small businesses in the year of 2016 when this data was collected by the LGBT Chamber of Commerce. 909 of them, not 909%, but 909 of them were queer operated. We essentially make up 1% of small business. And this is only the people who reported and self identified as such. Now, of those, 67% of them were owned by gay men, 30% were lesbian owned, and 2% were trans owned, and let's see, 2.3 were bisexual owned. There are
Wow.
some upsides. There are some upsides. Of that small percent, we do tend to stay in business longer when we get into business. So, of those 909, the average age was 12 to 16 years, whereas in general, when it comes to small businesses, I want to say it's like 4 to 5 years. So, when we're small, but we're impactful, we make some impact. Um, so yeah, that being said, it's important. It's important because when you think about our communities and you look at our rates of homelessness, our rates of abuse, our rates of neglect, the way that we have to work 3 to 4 times as hard for half as much, especially when it comes to our differing intersections of either being black, being woman, being trans, being any sort of non-gender conforming person, we have it's hard out here in this world, essentially. And when we own our businesses, when we support others who are in our communities, what winds up happening is that, like we're able to, if we look back at the river analogy, we're able to sort of like make that river more powerful so that those windmills turn and we get more power and electricity generated. You will not believe how hard it is to understand electro hydraulic power. Like, I was trying to look for a good analogy for this. Like, I am not a scientist, so oh my God. But um, all of that said, sort of, I think that when you have businesses, a really cool thing is that you learn a lot of lessons. You don't necessarily have to be a business owner itself. You don't necessarily only have to be a kind of you don't only have to be, like the operator. You can still like work in partnership and things like that. You can be a side hustler with a main big job, or you can even be just a full-time entrepreneur. So that being said,
Can I
let's
just ask
see.
you a question?
Absolutely, please do, because I will talk forever if you don't.
No, actually, it's just like about the numbers that you gave to me. It's so interesting about like how minimum percent like like the owners identify themselves as a LGBT. Do you know the
hmm
numbers of like LGBT with color? Like the owner about that? Because I'm
So
sure it's smaller,
unfortunately,
right? Oh, are you gonna talk about
unfortunately,
that?
it's even. So, well, actually, while looking for statistics, I wasn't able to find anything that was relevant or reliable that was sort of timely. Um, so I apologize, but that's some kind of research that I would have to do like a bit more in depth, but I was not able to really find anything that would be reliable or relevant to here that is in the last few years. But we can definitely say that of those 909, it's probably a lot smaller,
Yeah, for
which
sure.
I'm laughing, but I'm crying inside, I promise.
I know, I know.
um, but yeah, so let's see. I think the way that I was sort of going to go through this evening was to look at sort of my own history with business and entrepreneurship because I'll tell you right now, if you expected to get on this live and be seeing like some kind of Warren Buffett who has been doing it all his life and stuff like that, I got some news for you. I'm broke. um, but I do work with businesses all the time, and so this is sort of like a lot of my own insight. This is a lot of my own experience, and sort of like because I do get the privilege of working up close with the business, seeing how they operate, seeing what they need, seeing how they scale from small to large. And not only just the business that makes money, but sort of like the business that's nonprofit. Now, I do have a lot of experience with that on the ground. I think that like that's where the value that I bring comes in. Hey, Juanetta, thank you for joining. So yeah, like why should you listen to me, especially if I'm somebody who hates money? The reason is that when it comes to business, I love creating value and I love expressing myself, and business is just one of those ways that it helps. Um, so when you asked me earlier, like sort of what is my experience, who I am, now is sort of the time that I'd like to talk about just my working history. When I first was in high school, I worked at Cold Stone Creamery and
Mm,
I hated it, but I was living with my parents and I didn't need it. So I was young and I was just like, okay, whatever, I will walk in, I'll, do my thing, I'll have my fun. But if the boss said something I didn't like, I was like, okay, I'm leaving today. You're making me upset. I'll come tomorrow if I want to. That's not good, but I was young and, attitudinal. Um, I did learn from that, though. I learned a lesson, and that's what I'm going to do for all of these. I'm going to tell you a lesson that I learned. So, what I learned from that is that even though I hated it, I should have been a little bit more committed. But I did learn that I have value, and if you're going to treat me like trash, you don't deserve what I have to give you. I have love for myself and I have pride, and I think that a lot of people do, and they find themselves sort of quote unquote unhireable or not willing to work for certain, like attitudes and things like that, because why
uh-huh.
should they? So honestly, entrepreneurship is another path for you to be able to create value and get rewarded for what you're creating and not having to deal with people who don't love you, people who don't cherish you, people who don't treat you like a human. My next job was dog walking, and I think that's where a lot of my entrepreneurial, my first bit came in. It's because it taught me how to look for opportunity. I wanted this sweater. So back in the day, I had never bought my own clothes. My mom had bought them, and she wouldn't buy me like this really tight turtleneck that I wanted. It's like the sweater turtleneck, and she's like, "That's a little gay. You maybe don't need that." And I'm thinking, "Yes, I do. I want it." And she's like, "Well, you have to get your own money." By this time, I was no longer working at Cold Stone Creamery. I was in the ice cream business for 3 weeks. I got a check, and I said, okay, I don't think this money is worth the way you're treating me, so I left. Um, but, so I'm still being supported by my parents at this time, and I now have to find a way to get what I want, right? I want this sweater, this beautiful gay sweater that I want, and I can't have it because she's not going to buy it. And it's also a lot of money. I think it was $75, which was pretty expensive. But, but what wound up happening is that I saw somebody walking a dog, and I heard her saying, "Oh my God, this dog is so annoying, blah, 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 blah." And I thought, hey, if I walk your dog for you, can you give me some money? Yes. She gave me $5. And then I said, "Oh, do you like walking your dog?" Now, this lady, I just happened to live in a very wealthy neighborhood at that time. And she was like, "Yeah, if you walk my dog, I'll give you $5. $5 is nothing to her. She buys Starbucks with $5 every day, probably more than that. She spends more money on Starbucks than she paid me to walk her dog." Um, but every day I walked her dog. Every day I would come, let's see, I would wake up at 6 and I would come back home at around 6 and I would walk her dog twice. So that was $10 a day. What wound up happening is that I was saying, okay, cool. What if I walk other people's dog too at the same time? Within a week, I had enough money to go ahead and buy this sweater. And I'm like, oh my God, what did I do? So my lesson from there, I learned to find opportunity and I learned to create value and get money for it. Now, if I were smart at that time, I would have known to say, hey, actually, it's $10. And she had two dogs. I wound up walking the both of them for $5. So that was my L, but I learned from it. The other people whose dog I was walking definitely made more money come in. Boom. Later, you have the graphic design and web design. What I do, let's see. I essentially did whatever work people need. Hey, I need a logo. Hi, I need a background. Hey, can you teach me to do this? Hey, can you Photoshop me for this? Yeah, $10, $10, $10. Oh, you want three logos? $50. Just sort of like that. So because of the lesson before, this taught me how to sort of seek more opportunity, but also how to manage projects over time. Because graphic design isn't just like you sit down and it's all done. You really have to go at it. And that's the lesson that I learned from that was how to manage projects, multiple projects at a time. Because if you're walking multiple dogs at a time, yeah, it's hard, but you have two hands and you have like 4 or 5 leashes, so you can do it pretty easily. With this, it's over time. You're not just done in 20 minutes. This is weeks, sometimes months. Yeah. And that's what I learned from it. And the last few are honestly where it got a little bit different. It got different. So when I'm telling you about the early jobs that I had, I was at home, I was in college, and these were kind of jobs that were so like supplemental. It's because I wanted money, but I was being taken care of already. This next one, this is actually when I got to Pernambuco, and I was living there with some family for, like some years and things like that. But the problem was the first month it's fine, you're living with family. The second month is, oh my God, I have to live alone. I can't do this. So it was like, when I was a younger boy and I wanted my little sweater, what wound up happening? I was like, okay, cool. This is like the sweater, except this is a house, electricity, an apartment, like a car, like all of these things. And so it was a little different. Because at the time, because I'm not a resident, or excuse me, I'm a resident, but I wasn't a citizen of Brazil and I'm across the world, I'm like, oh crap, I can't depend on my mom to send me money. I have to do this myself. I found people to teach. I went to some schools. I found who was sitting there. I found, some doctors who were in some bigger cities, like who travel back and forth. And I said, hey, let me teach you English. Let me teach you conversational English. So the value that I created for them was authentic English speaking classes and some conversation with, just sort of like, I don't want to say I did a lot of, I didn't ask them for a lot. I should have, but again, I think this is a problem. That's not my strong suit to value myself at a certain level monetarily. So I had to learn how to do that later. But what wound up happening is that because Pernambuco is in the northeast, you don't have a lot of Americans or British people who are coming through there. So there's a lot of opportunity. There's like a huge market. And so it's easy for people who have this skill to look and get a job, especially if they're quality teachers. Like I went to school for communications and a bit of English, and teaching was just sort of second nature. So it was honestly for survival. Um, and that got me through 4 or 5 years there. And at the best point, when I did learn to value myself and value my time, I think I went from working maybe 60 hours, 70 hours per week to working like 14 hours, and half of that working was commuting because Recife is a city where it's very, very, very hard to like go through. Oi, Ivo, Rafael. Ei,
Someone
Pernambucano. Sim, ela é de Pernambuco. Oi, bem-vindo. Obrigado por assistindo. Um, But yeah, so it's like I learned to value myself to the point that instead of having all of these clients pay me a little, I then got to having 2 or 3 clients who paid me more than what I was getting at that point. And then of course, the recession happened around the Olympics 2016 with Dilma, so I had to go, and that was sad. It happens. But yeah, this is something that this is kind of like my working history for the most part. Of course, now I do web design sometimes on the side. I do some consulting because it teaches me that even though I have a job that I love with Microsoft, I still like to do some things. Like I like web design and graphic design, and I love teaching people. So, like, for me, it was amazing just to do this. But it's nice to not have to do it. So yeah, and I'm gonna pause there to say, Vito, do you have any questions or anything like that?
I don't have any, and actually, if somebody, I think I didn't tell in the beginning, if somebody here has any question, just send on the question mark right in the bottom here, and then I'm
Mm-hmm.
gonna ask him later. Okay, so feel free to ask
Yeah.
what you guys want.
Okay, cool. So, yes, that was honestly a distraction just to get some water. I can talk for years.
You're fine.
um, but yeah, so aside from sort of like my history, there is the question, why should you become an entrepreneur? And later the question of what kind of entrepreneur and what are the pros and cons. So for for me, as I told you guys, I had different reasons and I learned different things when it came to becoming an entrepreneur. I learned, number one, that there are a lot of people who love the idea of being an entrepreneur for the sake of being an entrepreneur. What's the point? Like you're not creating value, you're not really getting your creative while you're doing it. So I think that you have to really find your why. Like some people need to find their purpose for doing XYZ. For me, I did it for these different reasons. Victor, you have a question?
No, just because Tabata said that for some people the question mark is not showing up. So if you guys have any question, just send in the comments, and then I'm gonna take a note and then I ask later. Okay?
Cool
Thank you,
beans.
Sab.
Okay, cool. So yeah, so let's see. So yeah,
Saying that,
so what are? Mhm.
no, they're just saying that the question box is not opening, so I don't know why.
Oh,
So just send in the
got you.
comments, and then I take a note and ask you. Okay?
Okay, got you. So yeah, so let's see. So what are some of the reasons to become an entrepreneur? And some of them are that you want to direct your own time. Like when you want to be free of like the 9 to 5, you want to do what you want to do when you want to do it. One option is to do that. Now, of course, you'll hear like I'm afraid to say that sometimes because I think that we have on social media all of these sort of like gurus and experts who say like, oh my God, you have to quit your 9 to 5 to become an entrepreneur. You have to do it. You have to do it. That's not for everyone. And that's, like the pressure to do it, I think it's wrong, especially when the reason they're doing it and the reason they're saying it is to tell you to buy their thing. So they try to put pressure on you to create a lifestyle that's difficult to attain, not impossible, but sort of difficult. You're not going to get $700 every 3 minutes and live on a yacht, like traversing the world and da da da. Like, please be realistic. Of course, some people do, but
Yes.
they were probably billionaires or they were lucky already. Um, but that is one reason is that you want to direct your own time. You want to sort of like set your schedule. Maybe you want to work at 10 o'clock. Maybe you want to work for only 3 hours a day. Maybe you want to wake up at, I don't know, 12 midnight and work. If you own your own thing, then sort of like, you can sort of direct it. Another reason is that people sometimes just love risks. So people will start businesses or they will, like try creative endeavors or try to solve problems, which that's another thing. Entrepreneurship is about solving problems and creating value. So if you love a risk and you just want to like jump in there and say, hey, I want to start a restaurant. Let's see what I can do. I want it to be a catfish restaurant with, some Italian flair and some Argentinian spice. You can do it if you want to because that's a risk. And you just want to see, can you make this profit? Um, I have never been like that. I have never been like that. I love stability. Like, do I love risk? Yes, but stability for me is a little bit more. It makes me comfortable. Sometimes you have to step out that comfort zone, but and it's always good to know how. Um, some people start businesses because the 9 to 5 is boring. Like, yes, they're working 9 to 5, and they don't necessarily want to give it all up and do a catfish restaurant, but they want something on the side. Like for me, I take on some web design projects every so often, or I teach people how to do it. Just because it's nice to get out of your routine. Like, you can go out to a coffee shop and you sit down with them and say, okay, cool, this is what I came up with. Oh, what exactly is it that you want? How do you want it? This is what I came up with, and you give it to them. Like, so I like that. um, but I don't like to do it full time because I did it full time for a while, and oh my God, I was so bored. So for me, it's sort of the variety that helps. Another reason that people do it is for dreams and aspirations. If you want to create a YouTube channel and you want it to go double, triple, quadruple, platinum, silver, gold, diamond, I don't know, whatever they're calling it these days, then that's awesome. Like you want to be the next Oprah of YouTube, go ahead. Try it. Try to see what it's like to get subscribers, to work on your personality to make it like something so that because like Oprah, she even has an effect named after her, the Oprah effect. It's like when Oprah says something is good, everybody in the world runs to it and tries to
There
get it.
you
Like
go.
she created Dr. Phil. Yeah, That's why we have Dr. Phil, because Oprah said, hey, Dr. Phil, you're a good guy. And the world says, oh my God, you need a show. No, we blame that on Oprah. I'm sorry. We blame it on her for that one. She misused her power for evil, and now we have him. But lastly, I think that a reason to become an entrepreneur is because you don't have another choice. And this one is a little bit more serious. As I told you guys about the statistics earlier about the, like how many LGBTQ business owners we have and things like that, what I neglected to mention was that we have a lot of statistics when it comes to, and they're not good, when it comes to homelessness, when it comes to neglect and abuse, when it comes to joblessness. And, people are unable to really join the mainstream economy. They're unable, like maybe they have some talent that is not appreciated. Like maybe they're an artist, right? Maybe they're an artist, but they don't have formal schooling, and so no graphic design firm is going to take them on. But, maybe at the same time, they're a person who is like non-conformist, and so a business thinks that they might like scare away customers or something like this, so they have a very hard time finding a job. Or maybe the only graphic design firm in the world, or I mean, not the world, but in town is like all the way across town, but there's some duties they have to do here. Whatever the case is, that might be a reason that, they don't have this stability, and so they have to try to make it on their own because you have to eat, you have to put shelter over your head, you have to provide for your kids, like whatever the case is. And so when you don't have when you don't have those external pressures, you kind of like maybe won't be able to do it. But I think that I really, really, really think that that's one of those reasons that a lot of people they do it because it's like it's either this or the streets and death, and that's really morbid to say, knock on wood, but that's the reality of a lot of people. People who have gone to sex work, who have maybe doing tattoos, like not because they wanted to, but because they just happen to be good at it, and they learned how to create that value and make a business out of it. People who do some graphic design, or even actually some coders and web designers who just don't want to work on the projects that mainstream America is giving. There's a market out there for people, and that's sort of like one of the reasons to do it. I know, let's see, we have about 20 minutes. I know you like to do the Q&A at this point, so I won't talk about the last topic, and I
No,
can begin
just
to
keep
answer.
talk. No, that's fine. Just keep talking, and then I have just a few questions here, so you can finish talking about the topic,
Mhm.
and then we just go on the end. That'll be fine. Don't worry about
Okay,
it.
got you. Got you. So yeah, so the last bit is a little short, but basically it's about the side hustler versus the full-time business owner, the pros and cons of each. So side hustlers, as I talked about, are people who maybe have a full-time job, but they do entrepreneurship on the side. And that might be sort of like driving for Uber or Lyft, maybe being a waiter or a waitress or server on the weekends or at nights, being a tutor and teaching, like some foreign language or some skill in school. Those are some examples of maybe some side hustles. Now, the pro of these things is that you get your regular income from your day job, plus you get some extra income from doing this. And some of the things is that if one of these don't work out, at least you have a security, like a security fallback blanket. So perhaps you look at COVID, for example. So let's just say that you're working at an advertising firm and you have, what do you call it? You're working at an advertising firm, and then let's say that you have like a serving job at the other side. During COVID, like, the serving job might have gone down, like the restaurant might have folded, and you still had the advertising thing, but maybe the advertising job also fell down after like 2 months because this pandemic has gone on for a while. Hey, Morgan. Um, so, like during this time, you at least have the ability, like, let's say maybe you're just a really good cook. you start cooking for the people in your neighborhood. So you're creating the value of good food, maybe for a good price, and you're able to still bring in something. So those are some of the pros. The cons of this side hustle is maybe that it's not worth it. So let's see. For me, as I told you, I was 16. I was over my job before I was even hired. I was over it. Oh my God, you can't even believe it. But if I were doing something like that today, like trying to do ice cream shop as well as my 9 to 5, I would be so tired. Like I would be sort of like working to work. Like I wouldn't be making enough. I would be super tired. I would be burned out. I would be burned out. So in this case, that's where we can say something like that. The money isn't worth it, or you're literally working extra to break even. So maybe that's a con for doing a side hustle. Now, when it comes to being a full-time business owner, that's where you get to steer the ship. Like there's a lot of pros to this. Like maybe you open the restaurant or the tattoo parlor or, like I don't know, glass. Maybe you're a glass blower, who knows? And during something like that, you can say like, all right, cool. This is what I love to do. I'm going to make this work. It's going to be amazing. It's going to be awesome. Yeah, that's a pro when you get to steer that ship. You get to say how many hours you work. You get to find your own clients. You get to decide how you want the culture of the workplace to be. And you get to provide opportunity for other people, like other people who might have had it really bad. That is really cool. That's amazing. You get to steer that ship.
That's
And
true.
then you get like that legacy too. After like all of these years, it's like, man, I built something and I am so proud of what I've made. There's nothing like that, I think. Now, some of the cons. Okay, so so some of the cons of like being a full-time business owner is that this is yours. So all of those risks are yours. Everything that happens is you. It's do or die. This is all you. There are going to be some murky waters that maybe you didn't really know about. Like, let's say, in the restaurant industry, I'm very familiar with restaurants. Trust me, I am. When it comes to restaurants, when you're eating and you've never been working at a restaurant, it's easy to say, oh, they don't know what they're doing. Oh, this place is bad. What you
Mm-hmm.
don't see, oh God, what you don't see is that there's a reason for these high turnover rates. There's very slim profit margins. Like in order to create a real a real profit on this, you have to do a lot. Like it's hard out in the restaurant business, especially when you have like 5 and 6 down the block from you. Now, if you're the only restaurant in town, that's one thing. But there's a lot of murky waters, and you should do a lot of research before you do something like this. And last but not least are the random surprises that you may not be prepared for. So when COVID happened, for example, because COVID happened to all of us, nobody
Yes.
expected that. Nobody saw it coming, but boom. Companies that were large enough to have had like a plan in place, now they are probably going to weather it really well. Smaller companies that sort of like are just kind of just making it, it's hard when everybody's got to shut their pockets because the economy is shut down and it's closing. And that's just the big thing. Like maybe, for example, something you may not know is that there's a property tax that you didn't know about, and the IRS is coming, knocking on your door, like, "Hey, what's up? Where's my money?" Or like you have the mafia is super strong, and I know that's silly, but the mafia is strong sometimes in some places, and if you're not paying the protection tax because nobody told you, maybe something might happen that you just didn't know that you didn't know, but now you got to pay for it. And
Yep.
all of that is on you. Everything you built is on your back. So those would be some of the cons of being a full-time business owner. And thank you. I yield my time on the floor. You can. Oh my God. So yeah. So any questions you have, feel free.
Yes. I mean, let me get the first one. I don't remember who sent. I think was on the Spectrum. They asked if you have any advice for the new nonprofit organizations with limited resource. You have any advice for them?
Yes. So when it comes to nonprofits, oh my God, it is so hard to do things in nonprofit, especially when you are not coming in as a billionaire or something like this. And it's harder, when you're trying to serve an underserved community who doesn't have a lot to, really give in terms of like the money. So you're probably doing it out of love. You're doing it out of like the passion. And so some advice is to find some kind of fiscal sponsor. Like, of course, like there are things like grant writing to get some grants. There are things like getting good at donations and sort of like getting them and soliciting them, networking and trying to find some in-kind donations. But fiscal sponsorship, I have found, is something that's really cool because it's something where, like, let's say, you can say like, okay, cool. Hey, big business. Can you please do something like, can you do a campaign on my behalf? And the proceeds of that come to me. Like, something like this. And you're able to really just get like, do the work that you love, depending on how much this is. Like, if it's a big company like Coca-Cola who is going to bat for you, and they say like, okay, cool, we will donate what? For every Coke can purchased during the month of June in the city of Orlando, we will give you 0.1% of that, or excuse me, 0.01% of that. Like, that's a lot of money coming in. That's a lot
Is
of money, and that's money easily. That's money you would have never been able to make before. So there's that. And I think that another thing is creating value. So when it comes to nonprofits, really listening to the people that you serve and what they want. And I guess this is good for any business, but especially a business that doesn't have like money to get started.
yeah.
When you are serving the people in a way that they need, in a way that they want to be served, I think that that's where you're able to get a lot of audience. You're able to get people who are willing to donate and, like, just allies who are willing to go to bat for you, who are willing to help you, who are just willing to do these things. So good programming, like, of course, quality programming that's aligned with your mission and your core values. But defining your core values and knowing who these people are, nothing beats it. Nothing beats that. So I think that would
That's
be most of my advice.
that's true. What is your biggest advice for people that's just beginning their career?
Okay, so can you go a little bit in depth on that? Like, just beginning their career and want to start like you're welcome, Spectrum, like just beginning their career and wanting to do a side hustle, or sort of just beginning their career but they don't want to be doing their career, and so they're trying to like find another thing to do.
Um, that was the question. So just
Okay.
answer what you think's better. Like,
Okay, got you.
'cause I don't remember
So
who asked that. So if someone who asked
Tabitha.
that, Tabata,
Mm-hmm. Tabitha Linares.
yeah, she just said, ask your advice for people who are beginning their career.
Got you. Okay. So some advice for people beginning the career. I think that learn as much as you can. Like, every opportunity is an opportunity to learn. And so the more that you are open-minded, the more that you're willing to listen. Like, you've got two ears and one mouth. Okay, my ears are a little blocked right now, sure. But you got two ears and one mouth, so you should be listening twice as much as you speak. Of course, I didn't make that up. Somebody did. I don't know who did. So sorry, anonymous quote creator. But if you're listening, then you can learn to find opportunity. You can learn to sort of like think like, hey, there's something here. There's an opportunity maybe to make money or create value or to help someone. and they'll be thankful to you for it. But when you're just beginning, oh, for your side hustle, okay, gotcha. Perfect. So that's some clarity. So, I mean, I think my advice still stands. Definitely, no problem. So yeah, my advice still stands, like listen more than you speak. But when it comes to starting a side hustle, I think that through listening, another thing I would add is consistency, like, and promise making. Make small promises, like, and then you want to carry them out. You always want to fulfill these promises, but you want to when it comes to these small promises, make them things that you can do, and then consistently do them over and over and over again. But do a little bit more than what you're promising. So if you're promising to like hit here, which maybe let's consider this a regular bar. You're promising to do this, like go a little bit above, and like that consistency is how you build a reputation, and that reputation will open doors, and the people behind those doors, if your reputation is big and strong enough, will know who you are before you walk in the room and say what you have to say, and probably they've already wanted to buy exactly what you're selling. That's that I would say is probably my biggest bit of advice: consistency and fulfilling the promise that you make as a brand.
And can I add something about this question? And what if people they identify themselves as LGBT community? Do you think they need to be harder than? What do you think about it?
Yeah, you know my answer. The answer is yes. Of course, I'm torn. I'm torn because that can be taken in a lot of ways. Like back in the 50s, if you were an LGBT person, I think that you would have to like hide who you are. Like they had vice squads who would come out and try to, trap you and get you in trouble and put you in prison. So that was super hard. And so part of like working twice as hard to do half as much meant that you have to work twice as hard to keep yourself hidden to get, like, and that's an added stress on top of everything else. Maybe people are persecuting you. Maybe people are like looking and scrutinizing everything you do, especially your competition, to see, is he gay? Is she gay? Are they trans? Let me go ahead and tell, like the local official, and boom, you're shut down because that was a thing that people could do. Nowadays, of course, it's not quite like that, but I think that's something that's really, really, really interesting is that now we have this sort of thing where it's like, do I come out? Do I not come out? Will I have supporters if I do? Will I have supporters if I don't? So whereas before the answer was clear, now it's kind of murky. And of course, you're wanting to be yourself. You're wanting
Yeah,
to support your people. You're wanting to do whatever the case is. And whatever choice you make will alienate maybe some part of your consumers. So it's like if you're going to have that strong reputation that we talked about, then I think that it's like, hey, I've got a strong reputation now, and people know I'm a queer person, but they also know I do excellent work. So if these homophobes want what I have to give, they're going to be respectful because I'm not going to bow down to them. I'm not going to, just like do whatever they say because I want their business, but they're going to want my business because I make the best damn cakes in town, whatever the case is. So yeah.
that's true. And if you have an ally that's watching us, it's not just put a rainbow flag on your business and it show that you are an ally. They're gonna make you. You know what I mean? So like, try to like, if you want to be open, if you want to be an ally, you need to respect, not just have a rainbow flag and that's it. And then if you
Right.
see a transgender get inside in your business or couple kissing, that gonna make a big deal. So that doesn't make sense.
hmm
So if
I
you're gonna be
agree.
open for everybody, you need to be totally open for everybody, right?
Totally open, and not just in June. Not totally open just in June, because you have a lot of people who, all right, it's Pride.
Oh,
Where the
yeah.
gays at? So, like, I think that when you, like, and that doesn't mean, just like throwing everything at the wall, every rainbow, every this, every that. It just means, like, being open, being there, and celebrating diversity, celebrating inclusion all throughout the year. That's really what that means more than anything. Celebrating your community, your employees, all these sorts of things.
That's
Yeah.
totally true. So, Sebastian, thank you so much. I think we almost end of hour. Just have 5 minutes. Do you want to say anything else?
Hmm. Let's
We
see.
have 5 minutes.
We have 5 minutes. Oh boy, what can
Actually,
I do in
four.
5 minutes? So I have a poem here no, I'm kidding. But no, like, but I think probably what I would say is support the businesses in your community when you are going to be, like when you have like local businesses and things like that, of course, don't just buy from someone because they're black, because they're queer, because they're a woman. Like if they're giving you a bad service, they're giving you a bad service. So number one, demand more, demand more, but be open to the limitations, be open to the lack of resources, and be willing to extend that hand. Like maybe it's adding a little bit extra in the tip jar to a local struggling restaurant. Maybe it's putting the owner of that restaurant in contact with, some other resources that can help. Maybe a financial benefactor who's interested in, sort of what is that investing. Maybe it is just like eating, like promising you're going to eat there on Fridays and Saturdays. For me, I generally know where my food's going to come from, and that's really standard. I don't really have to eat out. But if I'm going to do, like, I have sort of made a commitment that I'm going to support some local small businesses. And so at least whenever I do have like some parties or some things like that, like, well, pre-COVID when I had them, that's where I was gonna go for my catering, and I was gonna, like sort of ask the people who came to the party because generally I don't like to charge people to come to my house to have a party, but it's like, hey, can you give like maybe donate 10, 15, $20, and we're gonna have some really, really, really good food. It's gonna go to this local establishment, and we're gonna do it that way. So that's a great way to support. And it doesn't have to be that you get all of your nutrients from that one organization. You do it too much, you're going to hate them. Like, who eats at one
Yeah.
place all the time?
There
Actually,
are a
I
lot.
do, but I'm professional.
I know someone who does that.
People. Um, but yeah, so support is just sort of like the biggest thing that you can do. And anything else to say? Probably if you are interested in becoming an entrepreneur or having a side hustle that's maybe not easily established, I would say get creative. Something that I would have talked about if I had more time would have been like, sort of like the design of the hustle process. Like, generally, when you create a business, it's because you're solving a problem. So when you create a restaurant, it's because people are hungry. When you create a graphic design firm, it's because people need art. So what can you do? Who are the people that need it? And how do you connect to those people and convince them that you can give them what they need? Um, yeah, if I ever am here again, that'll be that'll probably be the next thing because I think that can take a life on its own. Easily can fill an hour.
Yeah, but that was an excellent. And even now with this whole coronavirus, we need try to help the small business companies because, as you said, some of them they just started the business before this whole thing happened. They don't have nothing savings or this kind of stuff. So if you can try to help them buying at least once, that's totally fine. We have 20
Okay.
seconds. I'm gonna thank you so much for being here with us.
Thank you for
Seriously,
having me.
thank you everyone. I'm so sorry, but I'm sure we're gonna have another one. We're gonna talk.